Hey, it's Eric Lee with Starfish Coaching and Designers Business Academy. Today, I am happy to bring you another episode of my Founder Success Series. And today, my guest is Ericka Saurit of Saurit Creative. She's an international speaker, an author, but more interestingly, she was an interior designer who transitioned to a marketing expert. And she has some great tips to share with us around marketing, but also the next level brand building, something that every business, especially creative designers, need to learn for their business. Thank you, Ericka, for joining me on my podcast here. I'm so honored to have you here.
Thanks
I
for
want,
having me.
yeah, I want to just give a quick introduction and then I'll hand it to you to do the detailed bit. But
Okay.
my guest today is Ericka Saurit of Saurit Creative. She's an international speaker and author. And what's really cool, I found, is your transition from being an interior designer to now being your own, I guess, marketing agency. Would you
hmm
call it that?
Yeah,
Tell
yeah,
me more about that. I'd love to hear about that.
totally. Okay. I am a brand marketing strategist focused on helping interior designers. And I say home brands, but manufacturers or makers in the home industry transform their business into unforgettable brands. I kind of saw throughout my career, I was an interior designer for about 10 years, working all around the world. And then I'll talk about that. I got pulled into the dark side of marketing a little over 10 years ago.
Right.
So I saw, that interior designers are often brought in at the last minute on a project. They're under leveraged, they're underappreciated for their work. And I became very passionate about making sure that they got their story straight and heard and hired.
Wow. Yeah.
um, so, like I said, the first half of my career, I worked as an interior designer. Um, and what I found that while designers are really good at presenting their own concepts, their own designs, their own, pathway to, whatever design it is that they're creating for the client, they're really not good at crafting stories about themselves, about the work and how it's really going to benefit the client. They're not so great at that. So what I saw was designers brought into client meetings, and this was in kind of on the corporate side. When I was doing design for agencies, I saw designers kind of brought in to speak about the design because the clients like to see that, but then fumble through, all the things that really kind of, lost the client's interest really quickly. And so what I was able to do is I bring in really quickly a story, a narrative about how the design met the business goals for the client, or really kind of suited the real why behind why they were building the project in the first place. And so I
Mhm.
was able to bridge the gap between the designer, the design project, the design idea, and what the client was really looking and paying for. And so that sort of led me into kind of a marketing roles, multiple different types of ways to support the marketing team, and then eventually into starting my own business, which has been really exciting.
Wow, that's such an interesting journey.
Thank
Uh,
you. It's cool.
yeah, so tell me, what was the impetus for you? Like when you were working as a designer and you
Yeah.
said, I gotta start my own marketing company. What was that for you? That's what kicked it off.
Okay, so I started Saurit Creative in 2020. So I had been working in marketing for about 10 years at that point, for a very, very broad range of design related industries. So like I said, I worked on the agency side. I worked in home furnishings. I worked for furnishings manufacturers, luxury upholstery manufacturer. I also worked for a commercial furniture manufacturer, a really fantastic one with beautiful products. And so I got to see how they were selling kind of B2B, what they were doing to sell back to the designer or to sell to design firms. I got to see the designer side, what the designers were really asking from the manufacturers to be able to, sell their projects with specs and all the things that, not just that the manufacturer produces for them, but the materials, the language, the story about how they're made. I then also worked in a global tech hospitality company in San Francisco. And I sat in between the marketing team and the environments team to create an entirely new product of homes to go on this platform where we were going to work with interior designers to create designs for these listings. And that was a really wonderful kind of way to see interior design and think about procurement and think about that kind of entire sort of how do you create a digital product around that. So that was fascinating. And then COVID hit. So 2020, everything changed. And I kind of decided that it was time. Everybody was going to be in their home. I was going to be in my home, but people were thinking about design, interior design specifically, more than anything else. They were thinking about how are we going to educate our kids? How are we going to, keep our homes sanitary and clean and safe? They were thinking about how are we going to manage all of these new kind of functions in our environment and still be happy and comfortable and fulfilled. And that was like, guys, that's what we've been doing. That's what interior design is. I was so excited, right? And so I saw a lot of interior designers struggling to start to manage all the business that they were getting. I saw them really kind of saying yes to everything. And I thought that it was a really good time to say, okay, I can do this again, and I can do this on my own. I can help interior designers create marketing strategies, create brand stories, brand narratives, messaging that really is going to resonate, get them the clients that they really deserve and really want to work with. And I'm going to start a business around this. And I also reached out to all the manufacturers I knew. And I said, look, you've been using fax machines and Xeroxes now. Like that stuff's not going to cut it anymore. The designers need more from you. How are you going to manage this digital transition? And what can I do to help you? So I was, just like anyone maybe starting a business, sort of thinking like, okay, I've got I got this skill. There's a need. I'm filling a space. I'm super excited. And my business was born. Saurit Creative was born. And it's been a very fast, amazing road ever since. It's been 3 years now. And I am, it's been amazing. So
awesome. Well, our audience is predominantly business owners themselves, a lot of creatives. I'd love you to share kind of that beginning business building journey, experience, lessons, whatever, from the early days of your building business.
Yes. So I knew from working in branding and marketing that it was very clear to me, like, okay, I know, the functions, I know what it takes to start a business. And I know that a business, well, first you have a company, then you have a business because you bring in revenue, and then you have a brand, right? And I knew I really needed to focus on kind of what my values were, what I was going to say yes to, and what I was going to say no to. That's super important when you start any business, not just a creative business, but really essential to define your ideology, the reason you're doing what you're doing. I really wanted to define super clearly who I was doing business for. It was going to be interior designers, commercial or residential, or somewhere in between. It was going to be manufacturers, people who make things for, I was saying for the home, but then it turned I also had a lot of commercial clients too. So I was very clear on who that market was. Yeah. I've also worked with architects. I've worked with builders, and I consider them part of the home industry because we come from the same place. We're really, even if our services are very different, we come from, the same place. And typically we are attracting, the client base has a similar set of core emotion, that are driving their motivation to hire a home builder or an architect or a designer. So that was my market, and I knew that really clearly. And then I worked really hard to make sure that I had the right systems. Having run a business before on my own too, I knew it was really important to just be very organized about how I took in business, what my process was for, everything, documents. But I didn't, I would say one thing I didn't do right away early on enough. And it's hard to do this. And I think we can have a conversation about this. It's like, you want to set up the right systems, but you don't anticipate everything that you're going to need. And sometimes you have to step back or make sacrifices, make hires early on, just to take the load off of, all the work it takes to be a solopreneur or to be, an entrepreneur who's starting out, just maybe even on your own. It's a lot. It's a tremendous amount of work to set up a business and then to be thinking about it as a brand. So I guess that's just to answer your question. The first thing I did was to really make sure that those things were well considered.
Yeah, no, that you're so right. And I think everyone that's listening to this can appreciate the amount of work that goes into starting a business, except for our employees. That's a different story, right?
That's right. Yeah, they don't really understand.
No, they don't appreciate it. But I think what you talk about is great. And I just want to expand on that a little bit. Is you've had business building experience, and I built 8 different businesses. But even when I started my Starfish coaching business, you had the best intentions, and you know the process, and you plan all that out. But I think business, just in general, it's always going to have something unknown thrown at you. That's always the case. So, you plan the best, but then you have to be fluid enough. And I think the great thing is, as solopreneurs, especially experienced ones, you can understand that, and as long as you can roll with the punches, then great. I think the key trick though is, how do we, like, when we kind of get to a certain situation or a certain stage of our business, when we can systematize this, how do we get disciplined and stay disciplined, right? Because we're our worst enemy. Especially when we don't have staff and stuff. We think, I can do it differently here. And then we don't stay disciplined. Do you get that?
Yes, I call that shiny carrot syndrome. You're always, I think it comes from a place of insecurity sometimes, where you hear an idea like on a really great podcast, and you hear an expert or you hear someone talking about their experience, and you think like, I can do that too. Yes, that's what I'm gonna do. That sounds amazing. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna do it. And you start, but you kind of just have the headlines. You don't really have the full. Yes. So you kind of like bounce from idea to idea, which is unfortunate, because if you stick with one thing, let's say you put more time into sort of researching a particular system, or sort of, if you hear that one thing, kind of go deep, right? Go deep and see if it's going to work for your type of business before kind of jumping around, because that's exhausting. It takes away your creative energy, and that's really what you should be focused on in a creative, service business.
Yeah. That's a great tip there. And I want to expand a little bit on it for our audience. And I think what you're talking about is, with entrepreneurs are naturally creative and more dreamers, if you will, quote unquote. So we love these ideas, right? Like we get excited about this, and we're missing, as a solopreneur, we're missing that critic, that person pokes the holes in our theories to anchor us a little bit. I get the benefit of that in my big teams, but totally, I get it as a solopreneur. So I think for anyone out there that's listening, that's a solopreneur or an entrepreneur, that's probably the biggest tip is, don't go with the first flashy idea, vet it through, think it through, maybe even bounce it off a skeptical friend that you may have or something, and just be open for feedback, right?
Yep. That skeptical friend is actually, an amazing sort of like duality for you, is to someone to just tell you, say, well, wait a second, have you thought about this? And even if you're kind of at the end of it, like, thanks for your suggestion, I've heard you, but I'm going to move forward with it anyway. Getting to do the little kind of rigorous, process of following through will serve you well. Yeah, absolutely.
Totally. No, that's a great tip. So it sounds like you've done a lot of things right in starting your business. Looking back now, if there's something that you would do again, what would you do differently, just so that our audience can benefit from it?
Yes, I would manage growth better. Like I said, it's only been 3 years, but it's been accelerated for me very quickly just because the interior design business has been, going really well up
Right.
until kind of somewhat recently. I've seen clients sort of start to pull back on marketing. I've seen them, which is a mistake. We can get to that later, but don't do that. But I've seen them sort of, you know, not getting the same kind of inquiries that they were getting before, not seeing the amount of demand for interior design services. So for me, what that meant was like growing really, really fast and having the systems that I was able to implement early on really served me. But I certainly saw gaps and I resisted for too long hiring the people who could help me because I thought I could take it on myself. And I think
Mm,
that is a huge, once you learn how to delegate to, let's
right.
say, not just hire someone for your team, but to delegate, hire a consultant, hire an agency, like make the sacrifice financially that it's going to take to do that, knowing that it's going to free up your time to do the things that really, really deeply impact your business. We're not
Right.
accountants. We are not, I mean, maybe you come from an accountant
Bookkeeper.
background, but
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
the things that are out of our zone of genius really should be given over to
Right.
professional people, professional providers who can really accelerate, help you understand the process much better. Like you're not going to do your own like law, right? You're not a
Right.
lawyer. you wouldn't
Right.
you wouldn't dare kind of draft, I don't know, a cease and desist or even a contract. You wouldn't do that. You're not going to, in some cases, do your own bookkeeping. You're not going to plumb your own projects. You're not
Right.
going to build your own car. But why do people why do designers think or creative, business owners believe that, you can successfully ride in all those lanes? It's just,
Right.
it's not possible. And I see marketing once I, work with clients who see the success of, what it takes to, really hire a capable marketing partner.
Hmm.
They are just like, oh my gosh, yes, of course. This is
Yeah.
not something I could have ever managed. So I
Totally.
say I didn't delegate soon enough.
That's a great tip, and that's actually something I work a lot with for my coaching clients is,
Hmm.
especially as a startup, they I see it over and over again where they try to do everything,
Yep.
and then when I just coach them on the fact that, wait a minute, let's assign an hourly rate for yourself. How much
Hmm.
is that worth, and how much value are you bringing in versus
Oh,
trying
that's
to do this
so great.
bookkeeping, you can do pass off for 30, $40 an hour, whatever that is.
Right.
And not just that, it's the cost, but then I bet you by the time you do your bookkeeping, then give to a real bookkeeper, they'll have to redo that. So now you're
They're gonna
doubling
that
spend,
is a really good point.
right?
Yes,
It
yes.
makes no sense when you factor
Oh,
all that in.
it's true. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. But what I've seen too is that in, people who do it once, they get a, really, they get it, they understand. And then it's like, it opens up
Yes.
entirely new mindset about what a
Yes.
business can mean, right? What
Right.
does that mean when you have so many really capable people supporting you? What new ideas can you pursue? What new opportunities open up in front of you? It's really exciting. So it
Yeah.
can be scary, but it can also be really empowering.
Right. Yeah. And that's the mindset set that they have to
Yeah.
get to, which you talk about. So
Yeah.
I totally agree. You mentioned marketing, right? Like
Yeah.
you're marketing experts. Let's not do that ourselves. I want to ask you, what's the most important thing that you see for business owners around marketing?
Well, first, I think the things I told you when I was setting up, thinking about a brand, I think you have to really know what you're saying yes to and why.
Mm.
Those are your values, right? What kind of clients, what kind of, opportunities, like a licensing agreement, a really huge project comes in front of you. And, maybe the answer is not always yes, right? Is it going to lead to your end, right? If your end goal in your business is to be photographed in and published in multiple magazines, like is that project really going to get you there? Is it going to get in the way of other projects? So defining what makes you really differentiated, what makes you really unique, and original, and really sort of grasping that your heritage, any your background, any accreditation or your education or your what you were doing maybe before you came into interior design. I know a lot of business owners that I talk to have backgrounds in something that's completely unrelated to design, yet they've made a transition, and those experiences are super relevant. And so thinking first about like what makes you different is really, really important, because that's kind of the heart of some of the, marketing that you'll do. I would say the second thing is to, like I said, really know your client, really know exactly not just, who they are and, where they live and how much money they make. And that kind of personality defining,
Right.
persona creating is super important. But what I get to with my clients is what is really driving their core emotional motivation. There's a body of research that like fast moving consumer goods companies, big ones, use to sell, things like toothpaste and toilet paper and even cosmetics and things like that. And so there's a psychology when you go to the grocery store or to the department store, or wherever it is you're purchasing things now online. There's a psychology behind how they're positioned in the store, how they're not just how they're packaged, the identity, but like how the messages are being presented to you, and you have an association with them because perhaps you recognize and are loyal to specific brands, but their stories are really baked into them understanding you. And this research is actually very interesting and very, very famous in kind of the ad agency marketing world. And there's like 16 or 17 of these really big core human emotions that drive us, that those stories are built around. I took that research and being aware of it, I've sort of seen this play out in my marketing career with designers and manufacturers of home goods. And I created 5 of them that I see over and over again that drives clients to really want to work with an architect, an interior designer, a builder, because they have to do with this sense of place and home. And so you have to really understand those emotional core motivations, to be able to take your differentiator, take your thing that makes you completely extraordinary and unique, and understand their motivation and create a story around it. And so those things I see are just not addressed in a lot of websites and social media. Most designers, most creative businesses, their stories are about them. They're about where they went to school. They're about, the services they offer. They're about their team. But what people really want to know is how you can make their lives better. And that's storytelling that's going to really resonate with your client and help you, I would say, elevate your business to the level of a brand. And that is kind of the biggest mistake I see sometimes too, is that people don't have any of this in their storytelling, and they start to create a website, and they they wonder why, the copy feels empty. It doesn't feel like them. It doesn't, it sounds like everybody else's. It's very samey, or it's full of jargon. And, that doesn't resonate with clients at all. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't make people lean in and want to understand and get to know you more. So those are big kind of things I see very often, but they're easy fixes. So I won't say that they're catastrophic, but they're very common.
Right. That's, what you bring up is so huge. I want to just spend a bit more time on that.
Yeah.
Because I also see it through my coaching, is that people, especially the startups, right? They just want to take anything they can get, because obviously they're just starting up.
Yes.
So then they don't worry about the niche, the audience, none of that stuff.
Right.
And I love the way that you put it, which is, it's a subtle shift, but it's so powerful. It's like, okay, don't just talk about you. Right? People want to know what you can do for them. And that's your message.
That's it. Yes.
Just shifting it a little bit will have so much more impact. I love that.
Yeah. And if you think, I always give people homework. So I'm going to give your audience a little bit of homework.
Okay.
Think about the next time you go to buy anything, like literally anything. It could be toothpaste. It could be a car. It could be a handbag. It can be, whatever, coffee even. What is making you choose? What's the story you're telling yourself or that brand is telling you, pay attention. Like, what is it that's
Mhm.
motivating you to do that thing? And if you sit with those ideas for enough time, you will start to see, okay, yeah, my clients have a similar motivation as well. And that's kind of what you need to tap into with the storytelling. And you think there's many brands that do this really well. Apple does this
Oh,
really well. Apple
yes.
doesn't sell phones and computers. They sell creativity and innovation and potential. So
Yes.
they can sell anything now. They're selling security. What is it? They're selling, like, I don't know, safety, and they're selling all kinds of things like music
Yeah.
and whatever.
Yeah. Because they
But
have
yes,
such a huge following. Yeah.
yep. But that's actually what being a brand will open up for you too. So let's
Yes.
say as a designer, a lot of designers dream of having their own product lines. They have a dream of, licensing their name or creating for a larger brand. And so that might not seem like it fits necessarily into what you're doing now when you're just doing services. But if you are, again, operating from the level of having an ideology or operating from the level of having a brand, those extensions start to make sense. If your goal is to,
Right.
serve people and help them, just like in your business, like it will allow you to create business after business line that all ladder up to this one objective, and everything will make sense. And it's
Hmm.
it's exciting. It's the
Yeah.
potential is fascinating.
Wow. That's huge. That's a great tip.
Yeah.
Yeah. So share with us one more if you can.
Yeah.
And I want to know what you can tell our designer audience, what they need to know to create that effective marketing for their business, or
Okay.
common mistakes to avoid. That could be
Yeah. So, okay, once you've got this really amazing, personal, unique, I like the word original more than unique. Let's say original story, um, for your business. I like, I'm going to use a little bit of analogy. I think marketing is like dating. So there's three phases of this, which are kind of very typical marketing speak. But there is the awareness phase. That's the discovery phase. That's like maybe you're dating on an app, right? This is like if you want to think about Instagram or other social media, this is like how people are scrolling through and are stopped in their scroll by you, by a photo, by something you're saying. Potentially there's something you've put out in your marketing about your business that really catches their eye. That phase is very big and broad. And you can be, putting that out to lots of different people. Maybe you're, meeting people at, your local community center. You're meeting people everywhere. I won't just say it's online, but you're sort of out and you're kind of, getting to know people.
right.
The second phase, and if you think of this like a funnel, right? The second phase of this and aligning it with dating is the kind of getting to know you, consideration. Are you the right fit? Should we
Right.
go? Should we go out to dinner? Should we just have coffee? This is more like educating people about who you are as a business or a brand. So this is, let's say in the top of the funnel, you have questions like, what does interior design, what's an interior designer do? Right. They may not even realize they need someone to help them. What's an architect do? What is that really like? Like, what's it really like to hire someone professionally to come help my home? Do I need an architect versus an interior designer? Do I need a builder versus, an architect? Do I need, a decorator versus a designer? Those are really big questions people can ask. And all that happens in that discovery phase. That getting to know you phase is like, what can you do? Right.
Right.
You lean back on your story and you say, well, I'm different because of this, this, and this. And, I might understand you more closely because potentially, I work specifically with families or with, commercial projects only. Like this is
Right.
when you start to create messaging in your social media on your website that really digs in a little deeper about who you are. So people can get to know you more. This is that dating, more serious dating phase. And then the
Right.
final phase of this is decision, right? Do you want to spend more time, more committed time with this person? Or, you would say that, do I want to hire this person? Do I want interior design projects and architecture projects take years, and they cost a lot of money and they require, in some cases, an entire lifestyle change. You have to move from your home, or you have to change, the scheduling for your children. It's a big commitment. And so there's a lot of information that has to be given. You can't expect to make someone fall in love with you and get married from an Instagram post. You're
Right.
not going to get a client from one Instagram or one thing you put out there. It's a process. It's a funnel. So marketing is really, if you start to understand, okay, my messaging needs to change depending on where my clients are in that journey, my potential clients, then it gets a lot easier to start to think about, okay, is there a better channel for one message over the other? Should I, really focus and invest myself more in that consideration phase? If, my clients aren't on Instagram or they're not on social media, I don't need to put a lot of, focus and attention there, and my messaging can shift and change. So obviously it's a little bit more in depth and involved than that, but that's the framework I think a lot of people certainly don't know. I mean,
Right.
if you're not exposed to marketing. But yeah, that's, I think, a big part of, one big thing people can take away from that.
That's great. And that's huge. I would say that's kind of the next level. A lot of business owners think like you said, think they can do
Yeah.
it themselves, but that's so basic and they're just getting it wrong. Uh,
Yes.
so I love that you're sharing these nuggets of wisdom here.
Thanks. Yeah.
If our audience wanted to connect with you, either for your service or even to learn from you, what are some avenues
Yeah.
for your connections?
Thank you for asking. I'm super excited I'm about to launch a marketing school for creatives.
Sure.
It's a 6-week, very kind of hands-on course. It will be virtual, so you can take it throughout the week as you go, just a couple of hours a week. By the end of 6 weeks, you'll have a marketing plan. I'm going to teach you everything I've kind of talked about already, and really everything I've learned in my career as a creative, as a designer, as a creative director, as a marketing director. And I'm going to put all that in this. All this is in this course. I've been working with a professional instructional design team to help me really parse through that information and make it learner friendly. And so, by the end of 6 weeks, you'll have a marketing plan. You'll have a full understanding of marketing, and I'll send you the link. You can include it in your show notes. But otherwise, I'm very easy to find everywhere. I'm at Saurit Creative, Saurit Creative, and that's .com. That's on all the socials. It's all the same. So you can check me out, find me. I put a lot of thought into my newsletter. I really love sending that out. I really love getting, really thoughtful and interesting and educational emails. So I put a lot of energy into that. So you can sign up on my website for that. And we can stay in touch that way.
Great. Well, thank you again, Eric, so much for your wisdom. I think it's going to help our audience so much, especially when they start to do that marketing for their business. And
yeah,
definitely check out the course if they want to up their game in marketing.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Eric. This has been it's a pleasure to talk to you. I love your podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Take care.
Yeah. Take care.
So I hope you enjoyed that podcast with Ericka Saurit. She gave us some great tips there on how to not just market for your business, but build a brand, something that people will really get behind, and just having that perceptual shift around your marketing message. Do check out her course coming up, and do reach out to her if you have any questions about that. I'm Eric Lee with Starfish Coaching and Designers Business Academy, and I will see you on the next podcast.